This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Hey, I made this.
Welcome to the Starlight Ballroom. Hey!
Hello and welcome to Shipwrecked and Comatose, the podcast about Red Dwarf on the We Made This Podcast network. My name is Mark Adams and I am your host for this episode. It is one of 9 episodes in 9 days. Anyway, with me at this time is Carl Bryan. Hello, Carl.
It never ends, the Smegazine.
Apart from in 9 issues' time, then it does.
Yeah.
Also, it's Colin. That was Colin. Hello, Colin.
Hello. You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, we're doing the Smegazines again. It's been way over a year since we did the Smegazines. It's almost as if I kind of didn't want to edit 9 fucking episodes to be released in 9 days.
We could have done the American TV thing of just bang them all out in one go at the end of the year.
Yeah. And we're probably going to do what we did last time and take months and months to get these recorded and forget what we've said in previous episodes and say the same thing at least 3 times in the run.
Works for me.
Yeah, I was slightly concerned because this is the one I was like, this is the one that I remember reading as a kid in person, and I stopped and thought, have I said that before?
You probably have.
Yeah.
I think you said it was the start of Volume 2 that you started.
Yeah, I definitely had this one. Yeah, because I remember the comic strips vividly.
Yeah, so I'd stopped a few issues ago. As if you remember from last time, the man from the post office told me it wasn't suitable for my 11-year-old reading habits.
Because scantily clad Arnold Rimmer.
It was the Rimmer on the sex issue.
Yeah.
Which is fair.
Yeah.
Let's just take a moment to picture that, shall we?
Mm. So yes, we're looking at Volume 2, Issue 1, and there were 9 issues in the Volume 2 run, and we did think about splitting it into 5 and 4, but you two said no, let's do 9.
Yeah.
I hate you. Yeah. And this was May 93 on the cover, which means it was released in April, and it was £1.50. Now, I had a little lucky look on the money website, the UK money website, I don't know, Bank of Money, Bank of Sterling or whatever the fuck. And inflation-wise, £3.
Which is a lot cheaper than it would be now.
That's a bargain.
Yeah.
If you buy Doctor Who magazine these days, it's like 6 knicker.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's another thing that I checked a price on in a bit where it was the other way, I thought, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. In fact, one of the conversations we had last time was the audio books were obscenely expensive.
Yeah. I mean, I remember for a film a year or so ago, there wanted to be a point where I was reading something and I thought, I'll read the Beano, that'll be quite funny, rather than a newspaper. And I went to the shop and it's like, it's how much now? It was like, I'll read the Metro, thank you very much, and just wandered off.
There is a copy of the Beano just over there, but I can't quite see what the price is on it.
It's about £2, I think, now, which is, yeah.
I'm sure it was closer to 3. I think it was like £2.90 or something.
The Beano. And Freddo's.
Let's not have the Freddo's.
Yeah.
But
Space Raiders.
But Volume 2 started in May 93, which means it was between Series 5 and Series 6. So they were quite heavily hyping Series 6 during this issue. It features 8 extra pages.
Yep.
A new look. I don't think it looked particularly new or different.
It's got a different logo.
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
Basically. 2 free postcards, which is nice. And it's billed as being even smeggier than before.
Which now I know what smeg actually is as a grown adult.
God,
is a bit...
That's not nice.
Yeah.
You don't want anything to be smeggy, really, let alone even smeggier.
It's not the worst thing it says on the cover.
No. We're going to get to that.
We're going to get to that, yes. It's 48 pages as opposed to 40.
More adverts for Judge Dredd.
Actually, no.
No, I was going to say actually...
2 adverts in the whole thing.
It doesn't feel like they've actually padded it out with ads or anything.
No.
So I was expecting it to be shit and like have lots of padding, and it doesn't. I think it just basically has an extra comic strip.
Yeah.
Although in this I've noticed, by God, do they want you to buy the Primordial Soup script?
Yes.
It is mentioned on my count 4 times in this.
Yeah.
The front cover, it features a picture of the cat with a bazookoid with the tagline, "It's cool for cats." It tells you that there's a season 6 location report and that you can win the script book, Primordial Soup.
Take a drink.
And then I'm going to read it verbatim. The Gary Glitter of space, Craig Charles confesses.
Don't worry. This is before all that had come to light. That's not what he's confessing to. Don't worry.
That did not age well.
I'm surprised Craig Charles hasn't hunted all copies down and destroyed them.
Oh, the Gary Glitter of space, Craig Charles confesses.
The fun bit about this is, and if I remember correctly during the interview, he doesn't proclaim himself the Gary Glitter of space. They put it on him, which I think kind of gets him slightly off in terms of...
Dear.
Gary Glitter of space.
We'll come to that in the Craig Charles interview, but I think it's very important that we explain that he didn't fuck kids.
No.
That's not what that is about. It's just unfortunate phrasing. Moving on.
Yeah. I wonder if anybody's took this to him at a convention on, can you sign this for me? And he's seen it and remembered and gone, oh no.
Oh no.
I'm not signing that.
What are you doing?
I've got a feeling of what he's about to do. He's going to ring Craig Charles.
Hi, Craig. Oh, doesn't look like you can buy the issue on its own on eBay currently.
Oh dear.
Are you going to try and get Craig Charles to sign this?
You can buy the whole of Volume 2, issues 1 to 9, for £70 or best offer. I'm not going to.
70 quid. I almost feel like saying that's not bad if it comes with all the stuff that was on the covers.
I don't think it does.
Well, it's actually worth mentioning that, we have accessed this through the archive and we can share that on social media so people don't have to pay £70.
Oh,
let's do that.
I have found it for 20 quid. Oh, and for 14 quid. No, it is on here.
At least you weren't searching Gary Glitter of space.
No, I thankfully didn't. And I've found it, as I scroll further, I found it for a tenner. If I find it less than that, I might be tempted.
Wow.
Flash forward to 6 months where there's a picture of Colin with a disturbed-looking Craig Charles and just arm round him, big smile.
We want Craig Charles to like us.
Holding a Smegazine.
I mean, the ship sailed. The shit I've said about Norman Lovett, but we want Craig Charles to like us. Anyway,
I really want Robert Llewellyn to like us.
I want them all to like us, and I even want Norman Lovett to like us. I just think he's a bit of a dick.
Arse.
He's still he's better than David Ross.
Well, yeah,
He can fuck right off.
Yeah, he can. And we don't want David Ross.
Shit, Crichton.
Yeah,
I'd quite like John Lenihan. Original toaster. Oh no, he's not. He's second. No, he's original toaster.
Yeah, then he
not
was
to be confused with Graham Linehan.
Yeah, we don't want him. Yeah.
No, because he's a transphobic cunt.
He is. We've derailed. Let me get on with it.
We do that. So that was the cover.
That was the cover. Right, so it opens with The Boys from the Dwarf, which is kind of like a strange-ass introduction to Volume 2. And it gives you like a rundown of the background of major events in the last 5 series of Red Dwarf, with some vague opinions as well. It's not very good. It's completely unnecessary, and I didn't like it.
It's weird because it's like, are they talking to us? Are we Lister? It's this weird thing.
Yeah, it says, okay, so your name is Dave Lister and it's your birthday. The question is, how do you celebrate without ending up as the last human being alive?
It goes all over the shop, and you kind of think they're like, they've gone to someone and gone, right, can you just write a weird little recap because it's volume 2, just in case nobody read volume 1. But if you read in the Red Dwarf Smegazine, I can imagine there's not that many people who, unless you say you give it to your little brother after you've read it and they've never heard of Red Dwarf. Or something.
Who the fuck is this for? Because
Yeah.
nobody unfamiliar with Red Dwarf was buying this at this point. Red Dwarf Series 5 ended in March 1992, so that's over a year earlier. And Series 6 wasn't on air until October of 93.
Yeah.
So by this point, it's not that somebody's watched their first ever episode and then bought the Smegazine, which is exactly what I did the year earlier. I bought the Smegazine literally probably within a month of watching the series for the first time ever. But while it's not particularly on the air, that's very unlikely to be the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Odd. I mean, it's something we've come across in previous issues as well, the tone switches weirdly.
Yeah.
This made me start doing a tally to see if I got to 8 of wasted pages. So that's 2 out of 8.
Yep.
You are naughty, but I'm looking forward to the results of this. But it really doesn't feel like it's got anything new. It really does just feel it's got a few extra pages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next up is the Smegatorial, which, love that pun. Love me a pun. That was very punny. Smegatorial. And it's kind of like a paragraph about what's in the issue rather than a contents page. I'd have preferred a contents page.
Almost like an editorial.
Yes, but I'd have preferred a contents page.
Yeah.
No, some editorials, though, express opinions on what's going on in the world of whatever their magazine's about, though, where this is just like, we've got a new issue, there's this in it.
Yeah, Kerrang used to generally be like that. You know, they used to have
Hail
a...
Tharg. Oh, no, that's 2008.
Yeah, I don't think it's Phil Alexander and Tharg didn't often get interchangeable. But yeah, there used to be a bit in Kerrang where it was a little word from the editor, and it was usually about what had happened. And then this issue's created with the following stimulants, and it was normally what they drunk in the pub that week.
This episode, we're kind of lucky in terms of recording this episode because, just mentioning Kerrang, I live quite close to where the Download Festival is. And over the weekend, you've been able to hear Metallica playing their set from 15 miles away.
Damn.
And the other day I was sat where I am currently sat with my windows closed and my doors closed, and I could still very clearly hear "So close, no matter how far" and bass shaking things. And it's like, I'm really glad I'm not recording the podcast today.
Well, we'd have got like a copyright strike, wouldn't we?
Yeah, just Metallica play in the background. And
no, Metallica aren't litigious about copyright, surely.
The thing I've laughed about as well is they've left the country now, and literally today, I'm presuming they've left the country. Massive thunderstorm, and I'm talking like huge, loud, crashing waves of thunder. It's like Metallica have left the building.
Yeah, but yeah, you can win a book, Primordial Soup.
Take a sip.
Yeah, we're gonna have a drinking game. I'm having.
Okay, I've got my water.
I mean, I am drinking chocolate caramel cookie chocolate stout.
That is not a summer drink, Mark.
I know, but it tastes like chocolate, and I like chocolate. And...
This book, I mean, I'll give them credit. I owned this book. I think we probably all did at some point. It was a good book. They don't really do script books much anymore.
No.
Well, we talk about it when they do the review of Primordial Soup. Take a sip.
Oh, true, yeah.
Yeah, actually, you should totally do a drinking game for this episode. Whenever we say Primordial Soup, you have to take a sip.
Primordial Soup, Primordial Soup, Primordial Soup, Primordial Soup.
Fuck's sake.
I've just killed half of our audience.
Good.
Actually, depends how heavy drinkers they are.
Well, the question was, can you list all the 4 stolen emotions in polymorph? They were living in like a non-internet time. You'd have had to watch the episode.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Or remembered it.
Rememberings for like clever people, though, innit?
I do like the rules. I say I don't know if you like, as I've got it in front of me here, but the rules of the employees of Employees of Fleetway Editions and Penguin Books may not enter. The editor's decision is final and no correspondence will be entered into. The closing date is 3rd of June 1993 and the winner will be notified shortly after the date. A list of winners will be published in a future issue of the Red Dwarf Smegazine. You're doing it again, aren't you? Reading the boring small print when you should be enjoying the rest of the magazine. You're sick. You know that. Just remind me not to get stuck in a conversation with you in the party. Okay?
Brilliant.
I hadn't read that until then.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. There's lots of them. In the thing about joining the fan club, it says like you've got to send a self-addressed envelope. The fan club's a non-profit. We're not made of money.
Yeah,
just little things that are in there. I love in this magazine. It feels like they've got more of a personality this volume.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
They've found their feet, haven't they? Whereas quite a lot of the earlier ones, there were really weird, jarring bits where it was like, as I said, reading it as an 11-year-old at the time, there were things that were too juvenile for me, and at the same time there were things that I should not have been reading.
Yeah. Next up is List of the God, a comic strip, and it's a story about time-travelling cat people who are going to go and collect their god and bring him to the past. The first thing I noticed was, I mean, don't get me wrong, Grace Jones in Vamp is iconic, but why have they made Holly look like her?
I hadn't recognised her.
I hadn't noticed that.
I hadn't thought of her as Grace Jones. I like Grace Jones. I've seen her live twice.
You've seen the image of her in Vamp, right, with the stripy face when she's a dancing vampire?
I don't think I have, so I'm going to Google it now.
I thought it was like a CRT sort of thing with the stripes.
Don't get me wrong, I love it. Yeah. I think it looks amazing. And I also like how they're continuing with the grey rimmer.
Yes, I do like because that was all, we've probably said this before, that was the original idea.
Yeah. And the artwork is just so good, like proper 2000 AD moody art style. I love it.
It's Nigel Kitching again, who, as we've said before, is an absolutely amazing artist, and was best known for doing the Sonic the Comic a few years later.
This is the thing they recently had, because there's the Sonic the Comic podcast, which has been going for a very long time, and they recently had a convention to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Sonic the Comic.
Oh, awesome!
Because a couple of people from Cultaholic, who I listen to, and they were taking pictures and like, oh, Nigel Kitching. And my immediate thought was Red Dwarf Magazine.
Yeah.
And so he's still going. Apparently he still draws for Sonic the Comic.
Awesome.
So. What, Sonic the Comic is still going?
I believe so.
Good grief.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the same as the original one, although if Nigel Kitching's involved, it's probably got a lot of the same like legacy to it.
Yeah. It was Tom Campbell.
Right.
Who's a radio DJ and wrestling announcer and all that. He's a massive Sonic the Comic fan, and he was hosting a lot of these events, and there was a lot of pictures of him with all these artists and everything. But saw it in Nigel Kitching, and I was like, I know that. And then it went, bing!
Yeah.
And I almost felt like tweeting him, going, ask him if he's ever going to put out a book of just like the Red Dwarf comics.
We say it every episode of these that we're doing, it needs to happen, but it's so many different artists that I don't know how easy it would be.
Yeah.
But if it can happen, I'd love it to. It would sell. People would buy it.
I'd be interested to see if they're going to do some new graphic novel type stuff or some new comics, because they were talking about different media when Rob Grant and Doug Naylor became, well, I was going to say friends, but became money-grabbing acquaintances.
Yeah, that just conjures the picture of them both stood there like the front cover of Trading Places, like just shaking hands, grinning.
Yeah. Anyway.
Money raining around them.
A couple of other things in this that were interesting. Did you feel like it was clearly season 1 and 2 Cat, but set around season 5 because Holly was a girl? That kind of felt a bit incongruous with me. The cat had almost regressed a little. And that kind of felt a little bit jarring to me to see that Holly with that cat. Or am I being a bit too much of a fusspot?
No, I kind of agree with you, because there's a couple of things here. Like, Lister seems overly aggressive at points in this as well.
It's almost like Lister after the polymorphs got him, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's like Alien Universe Red Dwarf. Everything's just a little bit grittier. Everybody's a little bit snarkier to each other. I mean, in this as well, the cat's... I mean, he's an out-and-out coward at points. But I remember seeing this and being like, this is great, because at the time there wasn't any media about what happened to the cats.
Yeah.
And I just loved it. I did get confused initially with Rimmer complaining about the Northern Line.
Yeah.
And then the reveal that the ship's got a rail network.
Yeah. It's got a lift network.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it is the size of a city. That kind of makes sense.
The Rimmer wanting a new timetable for the rail network they never use is so Rimmer.
Yes, very much so.
The one thing I really took away from it, I really enjoyed that particular comic story. There's a bit where, spoilers, Crichton gets smashed to pieces.
Oh, that was harrowing.
I found it really shocking. I was like, whoa!
There's that and what happens in Jake Bullet later on, where it's just like, oh my goodness, this is for the older fans.
Yeah.
I think the thing about the Crichton image, because it was such a bit, it was almost a full page, and it was very gratuitous with all his like parts coming out of him, and I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah, it's Red Dwarf 2000 AD, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
It's in that. You could put this in an episode in an issue of 2000 AD, and it would not feel out of place.
Yeah. That'd be a cool way of getting more Red Dwarf comic strips if they could come up with a deal with 2000 AD. I would resubscribe to 2000 AD if there was a Red Dwarf strip.
Get Tharg on the line.
Hail Tharg. It does feel like as well that this could have been an episode, but it would have been a nightmare to put together because you'd have had to get Norman back. I mean, obviously we will meet some more cats down the line.
Spoilers.
We don't know
I knew
that. I did. I did know that. It's Promised Land.
We did.
Yeah,
it's Promised Land. But the thing I thought that was quite interesting is the change back to Norman Lovett Holly, and he's just out and out, I'm going to help the Cat Warriors to capture you.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, Holly's turned evil on them, kind of. Crichton's been destroyed. The panels where they're in like red alert look so good with the
lighting.
The lighting, the shadows of it. Like you say, you talk about Cat being a bit off sorts. I do like the bit where they're about to run away or fight or something, and Cat's pointing at Norman Lovett's face going, I like the fact he keeps calling him Face.
Yes.
Which is something he never did in the show.
Really like that. I've got that in my notes.
There's something different about you today. So he's still not fully twigged. But the Cat Warriors are great. They're straight out of Thundercats, aren't they? It's
via Marvel. Because there's definitely a Scarlet Witch influence on the mask that the helmety mask type thing that one of them's wearing. And there's also the guy with the massive hammer, obviously, is channeling Thor a little bit there.
And Juggernaut, I thought, as well, with the armour.
Yeah, definitely.
Because the fight scenes, like all the bazookoid fire is red and everything, and it, to be fair, it looks like blood. It's so well done, this one.
Yeah.
And then Cat abandons them to save himself and immediately goes and gets chicken, which is the biggest cat thing you could possibly think of him doing.
I liked it, but you're right. It did feel like a little bit... I didn't quite get why Norman Lovett Holly was evil, and whilst it was clearly Red Dwarf, it did feel quite different and, 2000 AD, gritty.
Okay, so my take on the Norman Lovett Holly, so he's the one that's travelled forward through time from the cat race, where he's been with them for thousands of years.
Yeah.
At that point, he hasn't brought Lister out of stasis. He hasn't brought Rimmer back as a hologram yet.
That makes sense.
And our cat hasn't been born yet. So at that stage, this is his family who he's been with for recent millenniums.
Okay, I'll buy that.
I like as well the fact that obviously one of the things is he's Lister, but people think he's Cloister or Clister or whatever, and he tries to reason with them that that's the point, and they said it doesn't matter. Thousands of cats have died in your name.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, that's actually right. The hats thing doesn't matter. It's also what was it? Thousands of years that they've been there. That they've got a time obelisk, which is something that you wouldn't think they would have had in 5,000 years or 3 million years of being in a ship's hold.
1,500 years that they've been at war. So
Yeah.
Next up is news from the Dwarf, and it's basically an update of what's going on in May 1993.
There's a script book.
There is a script book.
Primordial Soup.
That's happening. It's called Primordial Soup. What it does actually say in that article is that Sirens is in the book.
Yes.
The book is released before Series 6. Now, that's at the time, if I'd have known that, I'd have fucking leapt on that.
So did you pick up on why that was?
Because there was one from each season.
Yes, but why it was a pre-release one?
No.
They mention it later on. Series 6 was originally supposed to be broadcast at about this time of year when the issue came out in sort of March, April, May-ish. And it got put back by the BBC to November.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
So because it got put back, it was supposed to be that the script book was released at the same time as the new series.
Right.
We could, in print, before we heard it, would have seen the line, squeeze my buttocks together to form one juicy giant peach.
Rewords.
Yeah.
And maybe, maybe I wouldn't know. Let's have an update on that. Colin, have you ever squeezed anyone's buttocks together to make a juicy giant peach?
Only Pete Tranter's sister.
Okay. Carl, have you ever squeezed someone's buttocks together to make a juicy giant peach?
Only Colin.
Right, good. Since we talked about squeezing someone's buttocks together to make a juicy giant peach, I haven't had a boyfriend, so I haven't had the confidence to ask a random guy off Grindr if I can squeeze his buttocks together to make a juicy giant peach. But I will update you when I have squeezed someone's buttocks together to make a juicy giant peach.
We were talking earlier on about you being a baddie in wrestling recently. That should be a threat you issue to a opposing force.
No, it shouldn't.
Look, you, I'm going to squeeze your buttocks together.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Loser has to squeeze the other's buttocks together into a juicy giant
And the
peach
squeezing buttocks together to make a juicy giant peach match.
on a pole.
We've talked about Grindr already. Moving on. I've lost track now because you distracted me with buttocks being squeezed together to make a juicy giant peach.
I'm sure you mentioned it.
Yeah.
No, I did not. It was Carl.
Yeah, it was me. I do, in this section as well, it is interesting, a couple of things of... The Smegazine doesn't give a crap about spoiling things, do they?
Right, if this was now and this was like a programme I liked, I'd be fucking livid.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was a big deal then.
No, it really wasn't.
No. This thing, it's just like, oh yeah, Rimmer's going to be able to touch things. It's like, oh, okay.
Why do I want to know that?
Yeah, I can imagine, because I think I read it at the time and be like, oh, that's going to be cool. But now if it was like Who or something like that, you'd be like, oh, bugger, you know.
Spoiler culture used to be, it wasn't as much part of the culture.
There's some stuff where they're saying that there's going to be a film. Lol.
The film!
And there's going to be a new book written by both of the writers. Lol.
There's some things here that are just like, oh, these are things that we need to either have a look to see if anything became of them, or
yes,
like, Craig Charles's album.
I don't think that happened.
No, I don't.
And him indoors, I don't think that happened.
No. Well, I think that I remember the Def 2 slot, and that used to be like a culture show thing but they would put on like one-off things. And if it did happen, I can imagine we can't find it.
No.
But the thing I'm quite interested in finding is Chris Barry reading Jackanory.
I'm pretty sure it's lost.
Bugger.
If I'm wrong, and people who are listening in have seen that, special, send it our way.
To the tap verse.
To the verse of Tat.
So yeah, I've just checked Discogs, and there was never a Craig Charles album until he put out loads of Craig Charles Trunk of Funk compilations. There is a CD of Craig Charles, the Wordsmith and the Mighty Lawnmower on the John Peel radio show from 1984.
Oh.
But there's currently no copies for sale, and it's never been for sale on Discogs.
I like as well that we're starting to see people branching out more, and it gets spoken about more in the Craig Charles interview as well. The 10%ers, which I did find some episodes of it online, so obviously we'll special that at some point. But I like it comes from the Comedy Playhouse series where they just show like a pilot episode, 6 pilot episodes.
Yeah.
I love those concepts, and because sometimes you just get really good ones that don't get made. They don't really do it much anymore.
No.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
It always reminded me of sort of like the comic strip, that kind of thing. Where although obviously with the comic strip it's the same people, just different stories each time.
The nearest thing to it, really, at the moment, is the Christmas crackers that Sky do every year, where it's just like a series of one-offs. That's probably the closest thing to it now.
Maybe they should do it again.
Definitely.
Next up is behind the scenes of Red Dwarf 6, and holy fuckity fuck biscuits spoilerific.
Interestingly, though, it turns out that the cast still only know rumours about some of the stuff that's going to happen later in the series.
And they're already there.
They're already filming the first few. And, you know, there's a bit where I think it's Chris Barry's talking about sort of, I've heard rumours that one of the episodes is called Rimmer World, says Chris Barry, where there could be an opportunity for the writers to ask me to bear my all.
It's odd, isn't it? Because they even say, like, oh yeah, we've only got the scripts for the first 3, but there's still parts of the first 3 that are being redone.
Yeah. And so we talked about this when we did our Red Dwarf 6 coverage, didn't we? About how it was so seat of the pants and then it was fucking postponed.
Yeah.
You can see how everyone involved would have been fucking livid that they rushed when they didn't have to.
Yeah.
And I think this really gives you a scale of just how fucking rushed it was.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about where in the last episode of 6, they're talking and then the screen disappears and new dialogue is being typed on as they're going and all this. And it almost feels like it wouldn't have been this bad if it wasn't for Rob and Doug.
Yes. Yes. But I did feel like this was more about the plot of some of the episodes than actual behind-the-scenes stuff and technical stuff. And I'd have found that more interesting if it had been about how we did this, how we planned to... And I feel like behind-the-scenes before the TV show airs is a poor choice, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I think they're... Obviously, with it being put back, they know they've got to fill up what was this? April, May, June, July, August, September, October. They've got to fill up 7 or 8 issues. That's nearly the entire run of what the Smegazine has left. And they've got to fill that before Series 6 airs.
And you wonder if that's why it got cancelled in the end.
It could be. They were running out of steam.
We were originally hoping to cover this in between Series 5 and 6. The 3 of us just got so fucking busy. And
life.
Yeah. It's a shame. That would have fitted chronologically better, but, you know, we're 3 blokes with, in some cases, multiple jobs who do this for fun and don't get paid, so fuck off.
I don't think anyone's that bothered.
No. To be fair, the reason why we're doing this is because we did a poll. I was mortified when Smegazines came as that's what people want to hear the most of. I was like, really? Fuck.
We knew we were going to do it at some point. It was always the plan.
Yeah, but I wanted to do dumb shit.
They're still getting everything, I think, that's in that poll. It's just this is happening first, isn't it?
Yeah.
True.
I can't wait for the full cast reading of Pink Dwarf. That's going to be great fun.
I was convinced that Pink Dwarf was a film, not a book. I'm a bit disappointed.
I'm waiting for sort of Kurt as Rimmer and Matt as Lister, just the sheer sexual tension that's going to be in that one.
We've been threatening about doing Pink Dwarf for so long. Next up was an advert for Red Dwarf merch. Which of the T-shirts do you want the most?
Well, I had 2 of them.
Did you?
There's 2 on this page. I had the Ace Rimmer Smoke Me a Kipper, I'll be back for breakfast, which has got the Ace Rimmer World Tour on the back, which is brilliant.
Still a great shirt.
because you've got like, instead of dates, it's got like various random numbers, and it's all things like 081, 811, 8181 and stuff like that. It's like
Brilliant.
various numbers that are now very dated pop culture references. And I had the Better Than Life book cover T-shirt as well, with a bloke on the
I
lilac.
also had that one. But looking at these, I want the Inquisitor one the most.
The
Same.
Inquisitor one is
Yeah.
by far the coolest, absolutely.
Yeah.
It does make me wonder, because obviously there isn't that much merch at the moment. But if you go on like Redbubble or something like that, loads of people have been making like their own Red Dwarf. I might be actually setting one of those up soon to start my own, because I keep having Red Dwarf based T-shirt ideas. One of which is involving the words "juicy giant peach."
Funny that.
And if I do make one, the first thing I'm going to do is send one to you, Mark.
Then I think you should definitely start this business venture.
Yeah, but yeah, the Inquisitor one's just great. I've got a feeling, I can't remember whether it was just wishful thinking or I'm sure I had the Smeghead T-shirt, because I remember asking my mum if I could have the "Let's get out there and twat it."
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah.
And they were like, "No, you can't."
Yeah, I also did that. I was told, no, you are not allowed that. I also wasn't allowed the Smeghead one.
No.
I remember the "Let's Get Out There and Twat It" T-shirt. I remember I was never going to ask my mum and dad whether I could have that T-shirt, but there was a kid that had it, and I fucking hated him because his parents were cool.
Well, it was the only one with Lister on it, so that was the reason for getting it, and I just didn't know. Now, thinking of the things that I probably wear the most, I'd love a Red Dwarf beanie.
Yeah.
Because I wear beanies all the time, so a Red Dwarf beanie would be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit more subtle in what I wear these days, only a bit. But I quite like just the black one with the little Red Dwarf logo in the top left. I thought that was I quite like understated geekery, like stuff that not everyone would immediately spot.
Yeah.
So I quite like that one too.
Do you know what's really good in that kind of vein is the London Jets T-shirt.
Yes.
Yeah.
It looks great, and it, people will just go and go, oh, it's, just some pattern, some sports team or whatever. But if Red Dwarf people walk past, you'll be like, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the T-shirt that when me and Mark were in the museum in Manchester, and I was playing the Red Dwarf theme tune on this like pipes that you whack with a table tennis bat, and this bloke walked past, and he was wearing a London Jets T-shirt.
Nice. Somebody had one on when we had the Who convention at my work, and that was like, nice. Thing is, though, as well, in those conventions, if you go up to someone like, nice shirt, man, like high five or fist bump or whatever, the Who conventions do tend to bring in the people who are terrified of somebody going for a high five or a fist bump.
Well, the bloke that came up to us in the Museum of Science and Industry was a bloke called James at Night Chiseler on Twitter. If you want to follow a fellow Red Dwarf fan, there you go.
That's a good name, as in like Hammer and Chisel, Night Chiseler.
Yeah.
That's a good name.
In it.
The jacket. There is a.
We've had the conversation about the arms.
But have we had a conversation about the cost?
The shirts are reasonably priced.
Go on.
The shirts are all reasonably priced. They're like £9 each. The jacket is 10 times that. It is 90 quid, which, if you convert it for how much that is now, £234.57.
Jeepers.
Yeah.
Is that the one with the leather arms?
That's the one with the leather arms, yeah.
Right.
The thing is, if it's one of those things where if you owned one, I'd never wear it for fear of anything happening to it.
Later on in the issue, there is an advert for Terminator 2 action figures.
Yes.
And an advert for the Judge Dredd magazine telling you that in the next 3 issues, there's 3 new free gifts, one with each issue.
I love the 90s tradition of 18-rated film, toys.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
RoboCop, Terminator. Oh, dear.
So, of the 3 Terminator toys, which one would you have gone for?
The 3 that are there, we might have to put this on the Twitter so it makes sense. I'm going for Meltdown Terminator because he looks badass.
Yes.
With his white hot bazooka sprayer.
Yeah. It fired water. I remember that at the time. One of my mates had that.
I mean, Mark, if we were talking about Grinder earlier, should really put on that you've got a white hot bazooka sprayer.
Do you know what? I think I want the white hot T1000 because I quite like the arrow blaster, and you could like aim it at your brother's eye when you were 10. I was horrible to my brother.
We're all thinking that the Endoglow Terminator looks a bit weird, right?
It just looks shit.
I don't want him. I don't want him.
It does look a bit like Terminator in blackface.
Oh, now you've said it.
It does.
It does now.
Well, it's all right, Mark. I'm sure these are out of line now. Out of product now. How much are they?
40 quid. For the prices now on eBay, if you want them in the packaging, it's 40 quid, or you can get all three of them for about 5 quid each if it's just the figure on its own.
I mean, in the second-hand like retro toy market, that's actually not too bad.
Yeah.
You're right, Mark, as the words white hot bazooka sprayer just taking you out of the game there for a second.
Next up is the Craig Charles interview, and which explains the leader of the gang reference on the front cover.
Yep. Thank God.
That he is the leader of the gang, the posse, the Red Dwarf crew. Not that he is a horrible, horrible human being who shows no remorse for fucking kids.
Do any of you think in this interview that they caught Craig Charles in a bit of a maudlin mood?
Yes!
Yeah.
He doesn't seem happy, does he?
He's very introspective.
Where was this around when he was in rehab? Is it around that time, maybe, that he is probably in a dark place?
I think it was before that, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, because none of that really kicked off until 7?
It was between 6 and 7, wasn't it? So he might already be in a bad place when you think about it. No, it's actually quite sad. I'd spotted that it was quite maudlin, but I hadn't, done the dot to dot.
There's a bit about him getting bothered by, Red Dwarf fans when he's going to the supermarket.
Yeah. He does come across like a regular bloke who got famous.
Yes.
Yeah, he's clearly uncomfortable with the fame, I think, as well.
The thing that I think gets brought up every year is like, next year I'm not having the dreadlocks. Next year I'm not having the dreadlocks. Every year he's got the dreadlocks.
Yeah, well, I didn't know they were sewn in and he had to, just wear them for 5 weeks. That's grim. No wonder he fucking hates them.
I remember distinctly in one of the books, it might even be the A4 coffee table book, there's a picture of him cutting them off.
Yeah.
And the blurb underneath the photo is, you can't hear it, but what Craig is saying is thank fuck for that. But I think it's 6 where the dreads get smaller. They just become almost rat-taily a little bit, and they're not as big as they used to be. There's definitely in one series they're a lot smaller.
Yeah,
you get the feeling that that's when Craig Charles hit his limit, and he's like, "No, not big ones anymore."
Well, yeah, he's mentioned with the fact that they're sewn onto the back of his head, basically, that it's really uncomfortable for him to sleep. Which you'd never have thought of that at all as being an issue that he'd have.
No, I mean. We are 3 bald men.
It is a fair point.
If you sewed dreadlocks into my head, that would be fucking painful.
Have to super glue them instead.
And strange looking, too.
Yeah.
You look like the keyboard player for some random sort of Eastern European new metal band.
I was thinking someone like Jesus Jones.
Yeah.
Well, it was Carter, the Unstoppable Sex Machine, that had the bit at the front, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's this is the thing is my beard at the moment is quite bushy, and I will twirl the underneath around my fingers, and I will forget about it. And when I look in the mirror, I've got the two prongs, and it's like, that's right, Cold Chamber will never die. Getting back to this though, it is interesting him talking about Lister as a character. And how he's evolved, and how it's really tied into his own thing of now he can act. And how the thing that never really occurred to me, he was pushed out there at quite an early age with no experience making his mistakes in front of millions of people.
Yeah.
It's like, bloody hell he was.
Yeah, he was
interesting.
21 when he got the role. which is incredibly young. You are basically still a teenager.
Yeah.
Essentially, yeah.
I did laugh at the point where they said, Craig is probably best well known for his other work, like Cyberzone.
A wooga.
Yeah. It's like, that's right, people. Everyone remembers the 10 series of Cyberzone.
The fact that Cyberzone is lost media is probably for the best.
Yeah. Until somebody brings it back.
Yeah. But the thing I kind of picked out was that they've all kind of grown richer together, and they've all. But his idea of riches, we've all got cars. It's like, fucking hell. It's not that rich, is it?
It's that almost very British kind of self-deprecating, almost self-loathing thing of, we're so much richer now. I've got a car.
Danny John Jules has got a unicycle as well that you mentioned.
Yes.
I can imagine he had that before the money. Part of me would like to think he had that before the money.
Now I can afford 4 wheels.
Yeah.
My mate at school had a unicycle. I had to go and I fell on my face.
Oh, ouch.
It wasn't great. I didn't have a second go.
A lad I know, he decided to just to challenge himself to make that his main mode of transportation rather than a bike. And he did. And he was in uni. In Scotland, he was at uni riding around on a unicycle on a daily basis. And I was like, how did he not get face caved in? In the 90s, just riding around on a unicycle in Glasgow. It's like, mind you, I suppose
it's brave.
It's brave, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. If I was a Glaswegian and there was a bloke who was on a fucking unicycle, I would assume he was the hardest motherfucker because he was a Glaswegian on a unicycle.
Oh, he's not Glaswegian, my mate.
Yeah, but he wasn't talking.
No, but he looks like Adrian Mole.
Okay, I probably wouldn't assume Adrian Mole was tough.
But if you're out there, Joe, good on you.
Do you know what? I've never seen the Adrian Mole TV series, so I've only read the books. As such, I've just realised I've actually got no concept of what Adrian Mole actually looks like. Even though I've read all of the books,
I reread the books when in my teens, I think, because I read them at school.
Yeah.
And then I reread them years later. They're fucking miserable, those books. They're really depressing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As he gets older as well, it just becomes more and more miserable.
Yeah, it's really odd. It's almost like she's like Sue Dowson is just trying to punish him.
She gives him cancer in his 30s. He gets cancer.
Fucking hell!
Yeah, everyone leaves him, and he gets cancer. It's like bloody hell. And isn't he a Conservative MP at one point?
No,
or is that his wife.
Pandora. He doesn't marry Pandora. Why are we talking about this? Next up is the Junior Encyclopedia of Space. It is a list of fan questions with some answers, and this was fucking shite.
Yeah, this was the bit where on the actual thing I'd got, I really can't read it. I don't know if it's my eyesight going, but yeah, it's
the one page that's really badly scanned. It's some bits all right. It's the kind of thing that would get asked by pedantic people at conventions. Yeah. Like you've got the bit on the Smegups video where you've got them doing Q&A with the audience, and you've got the little kid asking how Holly recovers from his computer rashes.
Yeah.
So we talked about this on the episodes looking at the PBS specials, and I wish I could say that people who attend these sort of things have got more sophisticated. They fucking haven't. Having run some of these things, they fucking haven't. And questions like, why does Red Dwarf not stop for fuel? And if Rimmer has a light bee, how does he walk through tables? Fuck off. It's a sitcom.
Also, the first one, read the fucking book. It explains that in the first book.
I was thinking, when we were talking before about merch and how everything now's got loads of spin-off media and tie-in media, they could have released a Junior Encyclopedia of Space. And that probably would have sold. I mean, they've released worse. I mean, well, to say worse, they've released lesser things, of course. There's the script book,
Primordial Soup.
Primordial Soup. Yeah.
We've not mentioned that for a bit.
No.
The one question that I particularly disliked was, are the cast married? Fuck off, none of your business.
I did mildly chuckle at the not to each other response.
There was one good question. There was one very good question. Would you like some toast?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's 3 wasted pages of the 8.
Next up is another waste of a page. Androids. The art was good. What the fuck? Awful.
I love androids.
Oh, fuck off.
I'm still on the Android train. It knows what it is.
I still write meh every time it comes up.
Yeah,
I've also written meh.
I found it funny, especially the sex scene at the end of engaging turbo thrust, mind my crumple zone, which we've all said, let's be fair.
No.
Just the silliness of, Brooke finding Brooke Jr. and then all of a sudden their grandfather turns up and they're going to take back the family name. It's so silly and I love it so much.
Next up is the review of Visions 92 in Chicago. And Visions 92 is basically an American convention which brings over folk from British science fiction. And I think Vink from the PBS stuff actually went to this, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, people from British science fiction and Chris Jury from Lovejoy.
Yeah. Good for him getting a free holiday to the States, man.
Was Lovejoy a big thing in America?
I mean, Ian McShane managed to carve out a career for a good... He's still going now in American films and TV, so...
He's still very good in most of the things he's in these days.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
exceptional, yeah.
Deadwood, he's fantastic.
He was really good in American Gods. It was just a shame that they completely cocked it up later on.
Yeah. The John Wick movies, he's really good as well, because someone's got to be, because Keanu is playing it very minimal.
Did you see the Pillars of the Earth TV series with him and Eddie Redmayne? He was exceptional in that. Like, fuck. And it was one of Eddie Redmayne's first roles, and he was brilliant as well.
Can you imagine if they got Ian McShane to do something for Dwarf?
I fancy Eddie Redmayne. And I fancy Ian McShane.
And their names rhyme as well.
Yeah,
I do.
Redmayne and McShane coming this season to TBS.
I'd watch that. I'd watch the fuck out of that.
Yeah. What are
We've
they doing?
got distracted again.
This is what we do. So anyway, Chicago Visions 92 shows up.
Yes.
I like the fact that when they were talking about this, it was like devoted mainly as a British media con, Doctor Who, Blake 7, which wouldn't have been that far out away from ending with the... Have you two seen the end of Blake 7?
No.
I've never watched it.
I think I've seen one episode.
Yeah, it's a very, very, very ambiguous ending, and they never really explain it. Even in like the Big Finish stuff, they do it to like times that before the end. But the other one is Robin of Sherwood.
Yeah.
I loved Robin of Sherwood.
I was going to say, Mark's a big fan.
I loved it. I did an episode of Writing the Childhood on that.
I know.
You did. It was a really good episode. It made me want to watch some Robin of Sherwood.
I bought the DVD and watched it all, and Fraser didn't. Dickhead.
So the two bits I found most interesting in this is the fact where they're talking about they went to like the market stalls bit, and there was a guy in there selling the Red Dwarf Smegazine at an inflated price, despite it being given away for free at the convention.
Yeah.
Which is cheeky. And
you gotta love the grift.
Yeah. But then it also mentions ego problems that marred previous years from previous guests. I looked through, and the well-known guests were John Pertwee, Sylvester McCoy, Tom Baker, and Sophie Aldred. So it must have been one of those four.
Pretty sure out of those picks.
Pertwee or Baker.
Yep, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because I've met Sylvester McCoy and he's lovely.
I've heard that from lots of people that have met him.
I've met Sophie Aldred and she's lovely as well. They're both coming to the convention at my work later this year, and they are absolute sweethearts.
Yeah.
The one thing that caught my eye was that was that Craig Charles nearly drowned during Backwards.
Yeah.
That would have been grim.
Yeah, it's interesting seeing sort of Craig being brutally honest about things. None of the media training thing, especially like he's talking about the US Red Dwarf.
Oh yeah, he's still fucking salty.
Yeah, but I like the fact that he was sort of saying like the best person in it is the guy who had my part.
Yeah.
That's the bit that annoys him the most.
And the low-key shade to Robert as well.
Yeah.
You were playing your character, but the American guy was better than you.
Yeah.
Shade. Whoa. The salt and the sass.
Although they do determine that he's a bit worse for wear the second day of the thing.
Yep.
Can you imagine getting leathered with Craig Charles in a hotel? But from the way they make this sound, is like everyone walks out of the convention straight into the hotel bar, and there's no separation between those guys and the fans. So it's just like, oh no, I'm off record now. I hate Chris Barry. You know,
I know someone who refused Craig Charles a lock-in.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, bloody hell. Well, the thing that I was interested in here is they were talking about like they had a 24-hour media room, and you could watch things like we'll say there. You could watch the Red Dwarf pilot, which they gave to Robert Llewellyn to give to them to show.
Yeah,
which just shows how 90s that is. It's like, oh, Bobby, just take the VHS over with you.
Yeah,
amazing.
Oh dear, it's chewed up. Thank fuck for that.
Yeah. Oh, it fell out at 50,000 feet. But you could see the British Empire, Maid Marian. I don't know.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see how Maid Marian went over in America. I bet they kind of loved it. And then, but they mentioned one called Them and Us. Never heard of Them and Us.
Yeah,
no.
And that makes me wonder if it's something that's got somebody from Dwarf in it, but I haven't had a look.
Do you know what I'd like to see? A stand-up comedy routine by Robert Llewellyn using Craig Charles as a dummy. And the people that went to Visions 92 got to see that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I like the fact that he's always talked about, in any of his shows like Woman Wizard, he was talking about sort of the gender sort of differences, and the Reconstituted Heart, which I think we're going to do at some point. It's about that. I just like the fact he's talking about his therapy, and then it turns out that it's Craig Charles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Them and Us looks like it's a law comedy, a sitcom set in a law firm,
right?
Something like that. But it doesn't seem to have anybody from. No, it doesn't seem to have anybody on from the Dwarf in it.
Perhaps it's got some kind of Ed By connection or someone like that. It could be one of the behind the scenes boffins.
Reading this today, it made me think, like, what else has Andy Diemeny done? And I bet you he's done loads of stuff that we like, but we don't know he did it.
Yeah.
Because he is one of those like working directors that sort of like, have suitcase will travel kind of directors. And I'm sure he's done like big stuff.
Next up is the Ace character profile. And as always with the character profiles, I've just got a meh for you.
Yep. It's another waste. So that's the fourth of the wasted pages, but I don't think we can count that because it had them in all of the previous issues. So that's 3 wasted pages of the 8 new
it's
pages.
It's also vaguely worthwhile in as much as the next comic strip is about Ace. That is called Super Ace, and it's kind of a multiverse thing with Ace Rimmer travelling between various multiverses where he arrives in Smegopolis, which popped me, and it's basically a piss take of DC and Marvel that this particular universe has got superheroes in it.
Well, it's very much DC because it's the Justice League that it's riffing off.
Whilst true, the character that is Lister in this world is clearly the Punisher, which is a Marvel character.
It's partly the Punisher, but also partly the comedian out of Watchmen.
Yes.
Okay, fair.
Also, how much have you looked into recreating the Catman outfit, Mark, for future? Because it's a fantastic outfit.
I'm not a fucking furry.
No, but Mark, look at it. It's a leopard print bodysuit with knee-high boots, a red cape, and a masquerade mask. You would look absolutely stellar.
Ridiculous.
I think stellar. Also, it's got his utility belt's full of beauty products.
I mean, I do own quite a lot of things from Lush.
You'd smell great.
Sponsor us, Lush. Sponsor us. Give me free Lush. I didn't find it funny. I didn't think this was good.
I liked the supervillains that turned up. The Conspirator, which was the Inquisitor, and the Penguin, which was Mr. Flibble.
Yeah, I liked seeing Mr. Flibble. He was a bit more PG than the last time we saw Mr. Flibble in this magazine.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, I liked the fact that they were doing the big spiel about him, like, faster than a speeding bazookoid blast, stronger than a raging simulant, not quite as tough as a dimension-hopping spaceship.
Yeah.
Right, I get it, and it was clever, and it was funny, it was satire, but I just didn't really find it funny.
You're also not very much into Superman comics, are you? Because you hated All-Star Superman, which is one of my favourite comics ever.
How do you know that?
Because you told me ages ago.
I didn't think much of All-Star Superman. You are right.
This strip has the other thing of, we're talking about Crichton getting dismembered in the List of the Gods strip.
Yeah.
In this one, Robbie, who is Crichton, gets electrocuted, and the next shot he's just lying on the ground, and because he's got the mask on, he's got white eyes, so he looks like he's dead.
Yeah.
And then Catman gets shot, and you see a blast of red come out from there, and you don't. It comes back to him later, but you think, oh my god, he's killed him.
Yeah.
So again, you think he's been killed.
I think it's very Watchmen, some of the art in this one. It's actually Nigel Dobbin, who's the artist on this one, who was another guy that went on to do Sonic the Comic.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of knows what it is as well, because there's things like when the fight scene happens, it has, like badass fight scene, and the last panel is predictable punchline scene.
Yeah.
So it kind of knows what it is. There's an element of sadness in it as well, in that Super Ace that he meets, because his weakness is anytime anybody touches him, he faints, which is really sad because he does have all the superpowers. But if you in this case, if you try and shake him by the hand, he faints.
Yeah.
It's really sad, and he cries about his situation. It's
Next up is a rundown behind the scenes. It's just called The End, and it's like an article about the first episode of Red Dwarf. I love it when reading this magazine, I learn something new. You get a lot of stuff that's interesting about contextualizing what was going on at the time. But this is actually stuff that I didn't know, like that we nearly lost Red Dwarf because of a strike at the BBC.
Yeah.
Imagine that. A world without Red Dwarf.
It's really in-depth, this article.
Yeah, I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
They'd done the episode guides in the earlier issues that I think we all, when we'd read those, were saying, this is just really fucking pointless.
Oh, they were tap. But this is great.
This is so in-depth that it's fantastically written. There's stuff in there that you find out about in there. They stopped using Esperanto because the translator that they used was so boring that they just didn't want to have to deal with him. So they had a bit of Esperanto in the first few episodes and then didn't bother with it after that. What really surprised me, though, is Doug Naylor absolutely hates the pilot episode. He doesn't think it's a good episode.
Which is mad.
It's not as funny as the later ones, but it's a great episode of TV, and it's so important.
Yeah. I always thought it was interesting that McIntyre was supposed to be Australian because they wanted it to be a multi, an international ship. That the ship was originally supposed to be French.
Yeah.
Which is an odd choice. Not for any reason, but just random. But yeah, but the Esperanto thing works because it's meant to be the international language for everybody.
Yeah. But I think that's actually probably inspired by Star Trek, because you've got to remember Jean-Luc Picard was French, and they had non-Americans in that, and I think they wanted to go into this future where your nationality is less of a thing.
Yeah. It was a utopian society with no, capitalism or borders or anything, which I'm all for, apart from the fact that I hate Star Trek.
I quite like Star Trek.
An interesting bit, I've kind of got better into it these last few years. The thing that gets me in this is the bit about the funeral scene that we've seen in like deleted scenes.
Yeah.
And how it was because of the actual prop that it didn't go in more than anything else.
Yeah.
And it's like, I wonder though if it had gone in, if the pilot would have been a bit too dark, if you know what I mean. Because from what you hear in these, it didn't have any gags in it. It was literally just listed mourning.
Yeah.
And it seems very, very odd. And that Holly was originally meant to be a woman.
Yeah.
The other thing that I really liked was that they had this idea of getting really famous actors in to play characters like McIntyre and Todd Hunter and characters like that, and then just killing them all the fuck off and having these guys that were all completely newbies as the main characters.
Yeah.
I would have liked that, but I'm pretty sure the audiences at the time would have been fucking livid.
Yeah.
And not watched episode 2.
That's the kind of thing that works now. Like the example I always think of with that kind of thing is Deadpool. Deadpool 2, you've got there's the character that's completely invisible all the way through until he gets electrocuted when you see that he's played by Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's quite an extreme one, but you've got stuff like the first truly shocking moment in Game of Thrones was, how in the hell are we going to get Sean Bean out of this? Oh, we didn't.
Yeah.
And the other one was more recently with Star Trek Discovery, where Michelle Yeoh was the captain of whatever ship they were on.
Yeah.
And she was exceptional. She was mesmerizingly good as this captain. They killed her off after 3 episodes. And I'll be honest, I did what I said other people would have done after Red Dwarf. I fucked it off because the main character was fundamentally unlikable and they killed off the one that I liked.
Yeah.
I know later on in this issue of the Smegazine, they mentioned Survivors. When they remade Survivors in the mid-2000s, it had a lot of people from Doctor Who in it. It's like Freema Agyeman, Sean, and then in the first episode, I think definitely Freema Agyeman gets killed because of the disease. They just, they don't make it, and they establish them as characters and everything, and they just get wiped out from the disease. And it's like, cool, but they had like other stars that were sticking around.
Yeah.
But I just like the idea that it was going to be like Ronnie Barker and Mel Smith.
Yes.
Yes.
I'd have watched that show. What a pairing. But yeah, definitely. It's interesting to see in the hindsight. I mean, this will not probably please people, if they ever remade it.
Dwarf?
Yeah.
Don't
give them ideas.
No.
Yeah. I have been shooshed.
Okay.
No, go on. Say what you're going to say.
If they ever remade it.
No. Sorry, go on.
And did it as like, I don't know, they'd probably do it as like a 45-minute episode.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. I can imagine they probably would put in like more stars and kill people off, and especially if it was the Americans, I think they'd do it.
But that would be a nudge, nudge, wink, wink, wouldn't it? Because everybody knows if you're going to remake Red Dwarf that you're going to kill off almost all the people on the ship.
Yeah.
Which is why I lost my temper when... Did you ever watch Queer as Folk?
Yes, but I can't remember it very well.
Well, the American remake, the guy who had a drugs overdose, it was Chris was the character name.
Yeah.
It was incredibly tragic that he died from a drug overdose, and then they had an episode about his funeral and how they went to hide his porn mags from his mom and shit like that. It was incredibly tragic. But they copped out in the American remake, and the character survived and was in 4 fucking seasons.
Yeah.
That really fucks me off.
Kill him!
It doesn't have the same impact, does it? Having a drug overdose and surviving.
No.
For another 4 seasons now.
Not that I dislike the Ted character. I just wish they hadn't kind of replaced Chris with Ted and then copped out and been a bit of a pussy.
Yeah, it's odd. I mean, they could have just done, you either do a straight adaptation or you do the Office thing of it's based off of the British one, but we're going to go our own way with it.
Yeah.
To be fair, that was where it just started to completely digress and went its own way. The first few episodes did mirror the British one, and then after Ted survived when Chris didn't, that was when it changed.
That's the thing, is that you kind of have to. It's a very fine line. You don't want to end up like the Life on Mars US remake.
That happened.
Yeah,
I know it exists. I've not seen it.
it only lasted one season. It got cancelled, and they're like, "Oh, we need to reveal what's going on." So they have a very abrupt ending where it's revealed that they're on a spaceship in stasis with like a better than life thing almost. So you're in a thing. I think somebody's pod gets damaged, and that's what's caused this whole like group hallucination. But they're all traveling to Mars.
That's shite.
See what they did there.
And yeah, that's the thing. When you say that's shite, the reaction was just like, "What the fuck?" Just like, this is awful. Yeah.
Are you guys aware of the final episode of Biker Grove?
Yes. Because you told us.
Excellent.
The thing that bothered me recently about Life on Mars was they were going to do a third one, and it was going to be called Lazarus, and they've had to cancel that. I would have liked to have seen that. I think that would have been really good.
It would have been interesting to see how they would have done it. Because John Sims notoriously like, I'm not going to sign up for any old bollocks. And apparently he was on it. He was like, yeah, absolutely, let's do this. But yeah, there's just the idea of maybe it was them in like the Labyrinth world. John Sim riding the little dog with the hat.
If I was going to choose from the songs, Life on Mars, Ashes to Ashes, or Lazarus, I'd go with Lazarus.
Yeah.
Black Star's an amazing album.
Oh, Black Star is one of the most exceptional pieces of human artwork of all time, but it is also one of the bleakest, most heartbreaking things I've ever had to endure.
Yeah.
It's an incredible piece of work.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, talking about endings of series, the ending of Ashes to Ashes, I mean, the ending of Life on Mars was good. It was really good. But the ending of Ashes to Ashes, where they explain everything, like, it could have so easily been complete bollocks, but the way that the actors played it out, like, and I'd like to think this had happened if they ever did an ending for Red Dwarf, because of the way the actors carried it, it didn't matter that it was almost complete bollocks. There's been a thing, I think, recently in media in that you really need to tie up the loose end. Like, I've noticed it with Harrison Ford. He went back to Star Wars, tied that up. He went back to Blade Runner, essentially tied that up. He's doing Indiana Jones 5 because God knows he didn't want to end it on Crystal Skull. I think after he's done this, I think he's down to do a Marvel film, but I think he's actually going to retire.
Right.
And I think he wants to tie up his big three characters.
He's playing Thunderbolt Ross because the actor who played Thunderbolt Ross died.
Yeah. Which I think is just an excuse for him to just do some big mustache work.
I mean, yeah.
Is the money good? Who cares? How big's the tash? Yeah.
So anyway, Primordial Soup shows up.
It does.
Oh, it does. Anyway, read any good books lately? It's a pun. Red as in the colour. R-E-D, not R-E-A-D. Read any good books lately? It's a pun. But it's not a great article, is it?
No.
It's all right. There was one very interesting thing I thought in it.
They reviewed Primordial Soup.
They did. That wasn't what I was going to say that was very interesting. Jane Killick reviews the Red Dwarf Programme Guide, written by Chris Howarth and Steve Lyons, who also are two of the main feature writers for the Red Dwarf Smegazine, and absolutely fucking pans it.
Yeah,
I made that note too, and I howled with laughter that the sass, but also kind of it feels legit. If she's like absolutely smacking around her mates, then that's a legit review, isn't it?
It means that the Red Dwarfs magazine has got fucking integrity.
Yeah.
Because you'd expect that a book written by two of its main contributors, who I think they were the two who were in the early issues, it was only them, and then they brought Jane Killick in, if I remember correctly, and then built up a few more writers. For her to essentially sacrifice their work, it shows that there's not a, editorial strong hand saying you've got to fucking do this. My podcast through with this month's issue, quite often you'll find that the bands that are on the CDs that we talk about have got quite good reviews in the magazines, whether their album's any good or not.
Interesting.
And it's because, they've put them on the cover. They've got to give them a goodish review.
Games magazines used to have that a lot, especially in the 90s. It was like, this game's great. And then you look back and go, oh, they gave you some money, didn't they? They really did. Yeah.
Rise of the Robots. Are you sure?
That was a big example. I remember watching a video about it. That was a big example of being like, yeah, man, 95%. And it's like, even then you could tell it was shite.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, oh dear. The thing that gets me is I have a very, very, and I'm sure it's going to be one of the issues we're going to do on this show, is seeing this page where they reviewed Mostly Harmless, the 5th Hitchhiker's book. And I went out and got it, not thinking to read the 4 previous. And I was only, 11? And getting halfway through and it's like, this is bollocks. Because I hadn't read any of the previous books.
Yeah. Luckily, my dad is a very big Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy fan, so he handed me the first one first of all.
Looking at this, though, the Armageddon, the musical books look quite good fun.
I've read the first one.
Yeah.
And I'm fairly certain my dad they came in 8s as well.
Yeah.
There was quite a lot of Robert Rankin books in my house when I was a kid.
I think credit where credit's due. Robert Rankin and his style of writing is very kind of along the same lines and quite on brand for Red Dwarf. When we've had this Read Any Good Books recently section before, it's just been random sci-fi, whereas at least this feels thematically parallel.
I would say Robert Rankin is the third one after Pratchett and Douglas Adams, who are pretty much equal as being
It's
amazing.
a good third place to be in, isn't it?
It bloody is.
Yeah.
But the mention of Primordial Soup, even that got a kick in, despite the fact that they were clearly pushing it.
Yeah.
They said it was poorly formatted. I'm like, fucking hell.
Yeah.
This must have been like we need you guys to review something for this, and everyone's forgotten. And then on a Thursday, they've been told to go read them for Friday. And so they've had to give up their evening to read a book from cover to cover. The thing that keeps getting me is like, Armageddon the musical, $3.99.
Yes. Well, Primordial Soup was $4.99.
Yeah. I mean, the Red Dwarf program guy's $4.99. Although going off this review, I don't think I'm going to go for it myself.
No.
I did own it, to be fair. I owned both.
We'll probably look at both of those books at some point, won't we?
Yeah.
Next up is Captain's Log, which is a Mac McDonald interview.
Yeah, it's great.
The insight in how he started his career is just fucking chef's kiss. Like, what a brilliant act he was. An American bloke who came to Britain, made a fake jukebox, sat in it, and you put money in him and he sang. Fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
I love that that's who this man is. And I marked out for him in The Fifth Element because he was Captain Hollister, but he started as a cardboard jukebox in Covent Garden.
And the thing was, he toured it for 2 or 3 years. He went round the country.
I was desperately trying to find footage on YouTube of him as this jukebox because he said he was on That's Life and Razzmatazz and stuff like that. The story that he tells about one day when he was in Covent Garden doing the jukebox thing and Dolly Parton turned up to do some kind of photo shoot event and he managed to persuade Dolly Parton to join him in the cardboard jukebox to sing a duet. That's amazing.
Just thoroughly confirming. I mean, this was 1996? Just confirming what we've all, which seems to be the case for all of time, but Dolly Parton is great.
Yeah.
She's brilliant. I love
Just
her.
the loveliest one. Have you heard she's doing a rock album purely because she got put into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? And she's like, well, I've never really done one, so I really should.
Yeah.
And the guests lining up to do it are ridiculous.
It's
Right.
yeah, it's amazing list of people on it.
Isn't it like
And-
basically Nirvana with Dolly Parton at one point?
There's one major omission from Nirvana that isn't on it.
Well, yeah.
Ah!
This isn't one of them's like Ringo and Paul are on one as well. It's,
Yep, she's got half the Beatles on one track together.
yeah.
Has that happened since the Beatles?
Yeah, they have occasionally worked together.
No one could get them to do it. As considering that when she announced it to announcing the list, if Dolly Parton calls you, you answer that call. Thing is, if a lot of musicians will know, like if she does more of them, I'm on it. Tell my agent, I will drop everything to play with Dolly Parton.
I mean, who wouldn't?
Oh God, yeah. I can't sing. Well, I can sing a bit, but I would get better if I got the chance to sing with Dolly Parton.
Absolutely. Next up, actually, we're done on Captain's Log.
No, I love this.
Right, okay.
I love this so much. I mean, I'm going to say at the end, it's one of my favourite ones. Just how humble he is. When they said, "Oh, like your chicken soup got a lot of auction," he was like, "Why? Why would that have got?"
I like the bit where he was talking about coming up in the 80s alternative comedy scene as well.
Yeah.
So it is a really interesting scene. You know, I've seen various documentaries about it and that kind of thing, and it was a absolutely fascinating sort of time.
Mm.
And he also, I knew he was in Aliens, but what I wasn't aware of is one of Joker's goons in Batman, which I assume is the 1989 Batman in that case.
Yeah.
Yeah, it must have been because it was 93, so it can't have been any of the later films with Joker in it, because that was fucking years later.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's in the art gallery scene. He's in like a black purple turtleneck and a beret.
Oh, so he's on the Bat Dance bit.
I think so. Yeah.
No, it's Party Man, isn't it? Party Man is the art gallery
Party
scene.
Man.
I think it's really
Great
nice
song.
the bit where he mentions that he got cut out of Aliens, but he got put back in for the special edition.
I was going to say he's in the versions I've seen, so I must
Yeah.
have just seen the special edition versions.
Mm.
Because I was like, that's Captain Hollister.
I like as well his very honest thing about himself, where he was talking about like, yeah, I'm a police chief. You know,
Yeah.
I'm this. I'm a character actor, and I'm going to do these roles.
Yeah.
You know, and he's like, but I'll do them well. And I love the fact that when they ask him like, would you play Hollister again? He's like, oh yeah, absolutely. I love playing that guy. And of course, as
He does.
he comes back.
Yeah.
And is one of the best things in the series he's in.
Yeah. One of the few things that's actually worth anything other than shitting on in the series that he's in. But the other thing I did like about Red Dwarf and his experience with Red Dwarf was that he wasn't even sure how many episodes he was in, because he was only there for a very short period of time, and they knew that they were going to use him in, obviously majorly in episode 1 and then just very sparingly subsequently. So all his shoots were done in one day.
Yeah.
And that was actually genuinely interesting. And again, something that I didn't know about Red Dwarf. And I love when you can just occasionally pick out these little threads of fascinating shit from this magazine.
Yeah. I think it's more common practice today as well. Whereas like if you've got a guest star but you want to pad them out through the series, you shoot everything in like 2-3 days. And I can imagine Mac McDonald didn't get paid a great amount for it if he was just doing one day. But I think that it's interesting that you can do like 2 days of work and then it's like, you know, you're in 20 episodes because you came in for one day and we've just padded you out because you're, you know, the police chief or whoever.
Next up is Holograms, which is the reader's letters. And just like the fucking Junior Encyclopedia of Space before, did not like. There's a letter about Clayton Marks. Shall we have our Clayton Marks rant now, guys?
Yeah. We've already done that, haven't we, in the episode that he was in where we pointed out that
What a cunt.
paedophile. Yes. He's the Gary Glitter of space.
Yes.
Yes, he is.
I did very much like the letter where somebody actually was fooled by the very obvious April Fool in the previous episode.
Yeah, that was
the
ridiculous.
action sequences were going to be animated in the next series.
Somebody mentioned the crew singing on the comic relief Bohemian Rhapsody, which I remember quite vividly. Pure. I actually looked it up not too long ago, but just I was on a bit of a binge of like comic relief stuff, just a bit older comic relief stuff. And I remember seeing it because it had like, Chris Evans' big breakfast time, Chris Evans singing the "So You Could Stop Me and Spit in My Eye" bit, and they threw water right in his eyes.
Good.
Yeah. But the Red Dwarf crew just turn up on it. It's quite weird, but it's really good fun.
Someone says that Crichton looks like the Cenobite that is referred to as Pinhead, except by Clive Barker.
Yes.
And no, he fucking doesn't.
Not at all. He's got
Not in any way, shape, or fucking form.
I mean, he's got 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. He is humanoid in shape. That's a similarity.
Absolute poppycock.
I could kind of see their point, but it was
No.
No.
On the same page is what's happening next month, or for us, tomorrow. There's going to be a poster.
More postcards.
Yes, more postcards. The comic strips will continue and the Jake Bullet one will conclude. There's going to be more news, a feature on time travel in Red Dwarf, and a Claire Grogan interview.
Yep.
Interesting.
The second best Kachansky.
I know, right?
Do you know what? In all of the Red Dwarf media that we've consumed over the last 2-3 years, there isn't that much of Claire Grogan talking about Red Dwarf. And even in like retrospective, like she's not on any of the DVDs on any of those documentaries either. No. Maybe they just couldn't get her.
Well, perhaps we find out what she thinks about it tomorrow when we read that.
In it. Next up is another comic strip, Jake Bullet and Dwayne Dibley in the Case of the Cashed-In Contestant Part 6.
I really like this strip for multiple reasons.
Yeah,
I love that it switches from the art style of the Jake Bullet strip to the art style of the Dwayne Dibley strip.
Too.
Yes.
Also, Mark, did you notice who is in Club Nerd?
No.
It's Danny from Crime Traveller.
Holy fucking shit, you're right.
Yeah. The DJ is Bob Goody. Yeah.
But it was pre-Danny from Crime Traveller, though, because Crime Traveller hadn't happened.
Yeah, it's a good 2-3 years before Crime Traveller. But he's very well known. He was very well known, Bob Goody, and I don't know if we've mentioned it since that recording. He has recently passed away.
Yeah, it is sad.
I'm not familiar with Bob Goody. For anybody else that also is not familiar, that hasn't listened to the Crime Traveller episodes because they've not watched Crime Traveller, like me.
He's basically, he was like a very renowned stage actor and writer, and he does pop up whenever he popped up on TV or film, he always played like the awkward, geeky, and there's a few things he's in where he's like the sidekick of the villain and things like that, and he's always, but in Crime Traveller, he just won. He won mine and Mark's heart because he was just an absolute sweetheart in it. And he was such a lovely performance of what could have been a very 2-dimensional character. And in his later years, he had a hell of a beard, like a really good beard.
Yes, I've just found him on IMDb. Yeah. I've seen Flash Gordon. He's in that.
Yeah. So the whole Jake Bullet and Dwayne Dibley stuff, they were all one-pagers. Yes. Whereas I actually think I'd much prefer this longer format because even though we were reading them in relatively close succession, I was struggling to remember what had happened in the previous week because not very much had happened, whereas this feels... I just prefer this format.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, I went back into old issues and I was tempted to take screenshots of the pages and on each one and then put them all together, but I couldn't be asked, so I didn't.
I mean, if we genuinely think that we'll never, ever get the comic strips, would that be a relatively easy thing that we could do if people wanted them?
I could probably do it.
Theory, yes.
Yeah. It's definitely doable.
Could put it all together as a PDF and then put it up on Internet Archive.
Yeah. Yeah, I like when we switch into the Dwayne Dibley portion of the strip, that we find out what happened at the end of Back to Reality for Dwayne Dibley.
Yes.
Which is Rimmer's so thick that his brain stopped a bullet.
And the bit where you've got the art change, it reminded me of Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
You know, where...
Yes.
Because you've got the Carl Flint's art style's quite sort of gritty and dark, but then it goes into Nigel Kitching's really bright, colourful sort of style.
I remember as well, the punchline of this is he's bullets being all super gritty to the bad guys, like, you know, I'm a robot cop, silicon muscles, titanium skull, and then they just knock him out cold. And it's the first time I heard glass jaw, and I remember having to ask my dad what glass jaw meant.
That's a fantastic last gag. It's a fantastic, and the image of him with his kind of like tongue hanging out is just great. It's just a fucking super. Yeah, it's fucking superb. Fucking superb. Next up is news from the Omniverse, and this is a report about sci-fi that isn't Red Dwarf, and I'm like, why?
I can see that there would be a lot of crossover, but most of it was stuff I really don't give a shit about. It seemed like the writers were auditioning for SFX magazine, which didn't exist yet.
Yeah, true.
Wonder how many of them did actually go over to it.
I'm not sure. I know some of them work for Starburst occasionally, which obviously did predate this because it was going back to the 70s, I think Starburst started out.
It covers stuff like Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Quantum Leap, Survivors, like we talked about before, and Maid Marian. And
the best one.
I quite like all of those except Maid Marian.
Yeah. They talk about the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles as well.
I'd completely forgotten about that. The fact that exists, and I was like, oh, fuck, that exists.
It went on for a while. I remember it did. It had more than one series. I'm sure it did.
I had to look it up. It had 2.
I never watched it.
No, I never watched it either.
Also, the bit about Quantum Leap, where they're preparing for an ending to Quantum Leap, and they've got an alternative ending all lined up, which was a big thing a couple of years ago. That actually surfaced. That the alternative Quantum Leap ending surfaced. But yeah, it's like, all right, well, we're totally ready for should this happen. We've got an ending and an alternative ending. And what did they go with? One of the bleakest endings you've ever heard in your life.
Grim.
Yeah.
Grim.
It's quite weird. I've been re-watching old episodes of Monday Night Raw from like the first couple of years. And it's weird to think because they go like, coming up after Raw this week, Quantum Leap. And it's like, oh God, yeah. It's in the early 90s. It's still going on. Apparently the remake's really good.
I've not seen it, but I know Latham's seen it, hasn't he? Didn't it get cancelled then?
I don't think it has. I think it's just finished its second series, I think.
Oh.
Magnum got cancelled, and then it got picked up by another network. It wrapped up and everything, and it was like, cool, we're getting cancelled, let's wrap it all up, and then another network's bought it. So they're like, shit.
Wait. They remade Magnum?
It's on its 7th season, mate.
Not Tom Selleck?
Not Tom Selleck, no.
Get in the sea.
Is Tom Selleck's moustache at least in it?
No. What's his name? It's the lad who was in Suicide Squad who had all the tattoos and he could throw fire.
Right, yeah.
It's him, his Magnum. He's quite good, but it's not the same. And Higgins is an English woman. And they
fuck that shit.
Still got the dogs, and they fall in love at the end of Series 7.
That sounds absolutely wretched.
Yeah.
This is my thing with TV these days. Like, oh, did they make that? Yeah, mate, it's on like Series 6 already. It's like, I'm going to leave it then. Yeah. It's just like, I'm not getting into that now.
Yeah. No. So that is the end of this issue. And I know we were quite flippant at the start, 8 pages, it's probably going to be tapped, but I don't feel like it was as fillery I know fillery isn't a word, but I don't feel like it had as much filler in as we've seen in the Smegazine.
There were 3 pages wasted of that 8, as I've been tallying throughout. So, yeah, 5 pages of good stuff, basically. It's a good issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
If you look at it as well, in this one, like, all the comic strips seem to be longer. The Mac McDonald thing's 2 pages, and that's really, really good. Yeah. It does feel like what we're saying, like, even in the things like the episode recap of the end, it's interesting. Yeah. And that's 2 pages. So it feels like there is filler, but the bits in between the filler is something you can really get your teeth into.
Yeah, definitely. So on that note, what was your favourite part of this issue, Carl?
I think it's the Mac McDonald. I really enjoyed hearing about his early career, and it just reaffirms to me that he's just a lovely chap.
Strong choice.
Yeah, I think definitely Mac McDonald. Yeah.
Colin?
I was going to say exactly the same thing, but that I've got other things to choose from as well because it was also good. I very much enjoyed the Read Any Good Books Lately complete takedown of Jane Killick's colleagues. But no, overall, I think the really in-depth article about the pilot episode's fantastic. And spoilers, looking ahead, it looks like we've got another one for the next episode in tomorrow's issue. So I'm looking forward to reading that.
Brilliant. I think for me, I almost always go for a comic strip. And if I was going to do that, it would have been List of the Gods. Yeah. But as much as I love them, it wasn't a comic strip for me this time. It was a toss-up between the coverage of Visions 92, because I genuinely found that really interesting, or your choice, Colin, The End.
Yeah.
But I would also do an honourable mention to the Mac McDonald interview.
Yeah.
It was really, really strong. And I think we've seen a lot of things really kind of stretched out in previous issues where they could have been good, but they made them 5 pages when they could have been 2.
Yeah.
I don't feel like we saw any of that. And the stronger articles were the ones that were tight, but really interesting and well written.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with The End, but honourable mention to Visions 92. Carl, what was your least favourite?
Because I couldn't read it, the Junior Encyclopedia of Space. Or, let's go for one I could decipher, holograms. Still don't like holograms.
Colin?
The really pointless little recap thing right at the start. It was just bollocks.
See, I didn't go for that because it was bollocks. I could see the reason why they did it, because it would, for some people, want to catch up, but I found holograms more pointless.
Yeah.
I think it was gently charming in the effort, but it was indeed completely pointless. That wasn't my least favourite. Even though I couldn't read it all, what I could read of it made me angry. So the Junior Encyclopedia of Space. It was so many cunty questions by fucking nerds that I'm like, fuck off. Just fuck off. And then when you've got there, fuck off again.
Mark, that's our listeners.
No, it's not. Our listeners are intelligent people who like wokeness.
Yeah, we've got rid of all the cunts that don't.
In it, so I can bitch about them repeatedly, again and again and again and again. And I say fucking cunt, and I'm okay with that. I nearly did an episode where I didn't bitch about people who gave us bad reviews because I say cunt.
You hear that, Twitter? Mark says fucking cunt.
I nearly did it.
You did.
I nearly managed an entire episode where I didn't bitch about that. And that's your fault, Colin.
Yeah, Colin.
Yeah, Colin.
It's fair.
Colin, where can people find you on the internet?
I've got 2 other podcasts. People can listen to those. We Dig Music, which is about music. Free with this month's issue, which is also about music, although more specific because it's about old Kerrang CDs, Q CDs, that kind of thing. You can find both of those on the We Made This network, but also on wedigpodcast.com. You can find me on Twitter at MogwifeFearSatan.
Carl, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me at allmylinks.com/Mr. Carl. I recently realised that I've been doing this for 15 years. So I'm currently in the process of digging out a lot of my old stuff and editing it and putting it up in some form, either on like the archive or something like that. So I can say I've got like a backlog of work that I can do.
Nice.
Yeah.
If you're looking for me, it's at MarkAdamsHC on Twitter and Instagram. I occasionally go, oh, fucking hell, I need to do Instagram. But most of the time I don't. And I'm much better on Twitter, although it is basically full of wrestling and ceremonies shit. I do have another podcast. It's about Chucky, but you already know that because I say it every time. At Chucky Vision on Twitter.
He is the best character in Rugrats, so
he is.
Totally
Yeah.
I will cut a bitch. So thank you for listening to Shipwrecked and Comatose, and until next time,
Does anybody feel like reading that script book?
Shipwrecked and Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast, was created and produced by Mark Adams and Kurt North. You can find us on Twitter at Red Dwarf Pod, and we are part of the We Made This Podcast network.
Hello, and this is Chucky Vision on the We Made This Network, the podcast for all things Chucky. I'm Dev Elson.
And I'm Mark Adams. We're two queer podcasters who love bloody horror,
Camp comedy, gay romance,
and referencing icons like Freddy, Jason, and Britney.
The Chucky films and new TV show deliver all of that, and there is still so much more to cover.
So if you want to play, find Chucky Vision on Twitter at Chucky Vision and on all good podcast providers.
And yes, the title is a Chuckle Vision pun.
Because why not?